You botched the joke.
I botched it so hard. I botched it so Oh no.
I don't even know
I'm supposed to be walking JK rolling. But that was not good. Okay. Hi. Welcome back. This is round 2 for us, guys.
Hi, everybody. Yes, due to strange and unprecedented technical difficulties. This is the second time we're starting this video this evening, which is totally fine. It's cool. If you remember, if you guys have been listening, we're doing a little how-to on Dungeons and Dragons. Last week, we built a character in 5e. I believe I built a barbarian of some kind, so that was cool. You can go back and listen to that. Today, we're going to investigate how to build a character in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, or Volume 2, however you want to look at it. So this is from the way back machine. That is how you used to build characters. However, we already started building a character. We were probably like 10 to 15 minutes in. So we'll just Miranda will do a quick recap of what we did. And then she'll just pick up wherever we were.
Exactly.
Which is fine. It was mostly just a bunch of math and stuff.
And a lot of
Zacco.
Blank space. Yeah, Zacco. Blank spacing, because we're like, it's a lot. It's so much easier to build a character using 5e.
Oh yeah, I mean, I could already tell that it was.
This is like a 9-step
I want to explain what Zacco was again, because I really like
Oh my god.
Yeah, Zacco.
Yes.
Zacco is to hit armor class 0. Or Zacco.
Yeah. And you have to calculate it in this game.
And you have to calculate
which is
There's
a lot.
A lot more math right up front, and I can tell you that might have turned me off from playing this game, because math scared me and intimidated me as a younger kid because I wasn't good at it. So I would have had a hard time.
I did have a hard time, so I built characters and then I tried to learn the game by myself because I didn't have anyone to really play with. And then I just came up with doing walkthroughs. So build your character and then we'll storytell and we'll go from there. And we had like huge story progression, blah, blah, blah. But
yeah,
this is where we began. So to begin in this particular book, just a recap, this is what it looks like for you guys listening at home. It is, it has a sexy barbarian like Conan on the front of it. And
his name's
his name's Thaco is what we decided. There's some really great pictures in here too.
Some of the art is just top notch. That's really so of the era.
Mm-hmm. They did a lot of you can tell some of the artists in this really like went for it. So so we started, there's 9 steps to building a character in AD&D, and I'm sure it's not that extensive anymore in 5e, but in this particular one, you started with rolling your ability scores, and you could do them in the same methods as we did prior. We ended up rolling a person with a strength of 11, a dex of 16, wisdom of 6, dex 16, con of 16, intelligence 10, wisdom 10, charisma 12, and I was kind of lamenting a little bit about how I do love someone who's kicking in a 9 or something in there, like someone who's not an average person, you know. I like those kind of plays. Then we talked about choosing the race, because when you choose the race, it affects, in this game, it affects another stat. So if you take, say, something with a +1 in Dex, like an elf, you have to take a minus in your Constitution. So it adjusts everything.
I gotta say, I don't fully understand the math on that. Like, that seems a little random.
Maybe because you are so agile. Like, you're hypermobile, so sometimes you roll your ankles a lot. You're more sick because you're, I don't know. You're moving fast. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with something good.
You're so lean, you can't hold your alcohol.
Oh, maybe that you have a high metabolism.
Sure.
So you're weaker.
Sure.
Because you eat
weird,
a
but
lot
yeah, let's roll with it.
You burn it off, so you get fatigued more. I don't know. I ended up choosing a half elf, and that's where we had kind of cut out when my phone decided to go in grandma mode. Because you don't get any adjustments, so they are who they are. They are just, above average person at this point. Then it gives you bonuses and penalties the character receives for having particularly high or low scores. So there's a whole table too that's like, if your ability score is, like for con, I had 16, I get a +2. And then it has like my resurrection survival, 96%. So it has a bunch of those. So you have to look and be like, okay, my dex is 16. Oh, I get a +1. But I have a -2 to defensive ADJ, which is adjustment. And that's to when you're doing combat stuff, and it's the attack if it's successful or not. So it's just a minus that gets applied to it. Huh. Like I said, it's very crunchy. It's a very crunchy game.
Yeah.
So then you have to go, when you're in step 2, it gives you a play-by-play, like, go here and pull out all your bonuses, go here and record the character's special abilities. So if I go to half elf, there should be a bunch of, let's see if I can find one. Halfling, it gives a whole narrative about a half elf. That they have 30% resistance to sleep and all charm-related spells. They have 60 feet of that they can see in darkness. They can see secret or concealed doors, and as long as they are within 10 feet, they can see a concealed door, or a 1 in 6 chance to spot it. So 1d6. If the character is actually seeking it, they get an extra bump, and that's pretty much it. And then there's like a whole mess of other stuff for the other people. Very interesting. Once you get through all of that, then go ahead, get yourself a class, my guy. Okay. In this case, I went through and I was like, what can I choose? And you have to go to a table again. Back to the table, and it tells you what you can choose or not choose. So I will say this: I have never rolled a character where they were actually a ranger, because there's so many things that have to drop in order to roll one out, organically.
Yeah.
Then of course, it gives you another table to check for your class-based abilities, score restrictions. And then from there, sorry as I yawn, my bad.
Okay, late, guys. You gotta forgive us.
Yeah, it is a little late, guys. It gives you a whole bunch of stuff. Then it says, if your character is a thief, record his base thieving skill scores from table 26. So then I have to go to table 26 for this character. Okay. Modify these scores according to tables 27, 28. Then apportion 60 points between those abilities, assign no more than 30 points to any one score.
This is like doing your taxes.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Like, I remember reading this and being like, can I not?
Yeah.
Can I just not? Then, after you've done all of that, it's beautiful. You can choose your alignment, but you have to abide by class restrictions. So paladins, rangers, mythos priest, bard, they have very particular alignments they can have. So paladin, oh my gosh, you started it.
I know I did. I'm so sorry.
Paladin is can only be lawful good. Period. No evil paladins in this book. Paladins were to uphold good and truth and smite the wicked and blah blah blah. Then you get into THAC0, which is our 5th step. And guess what you got to do it though?
Go to a table.
Consult a table. That's right.
How did I know?
Not just one table. 2 tables. 2 tables you got to look at for getting all that.
That's a 2-table THAC0 special.
That's right. And then when you're all done with that, then you can roll. Oh my god. I did not have caffeine before we did this. Then you get to roll the hit points, which hasn't really changed much. Like your warrior 1d10, priest 1d8, rogue 1d6, mage 1d4. Then you can record your character's base movement based on what? What is it?
A table?
That's right, another table. And then you have to do your encumbrance. And then, guess what that's based on?
Motherfucking table.
That's right. Give it up for those tables. Because now we're on step 8. And now we got to get our proficiencies. And guess where? We're going to find out where our character's weapon and non-weapon proficiency slots are.
That's going to be aisle J12. And it's a table.
That's right. You are so good at this.
Advanced Dungeons & Dragons is like an IKEA. There are so many tables that you have to go to and find and put together.
It's a lot. Yep. Add the character's number of languages known from table 4. And to his number of non-weapon proficiencies. Select weapon proficiencies. Select non-weapon proficiencies. Record their relevant abilities and check modifiers. Hey! Then we're done with all that. Oh my god, dude.
You know, it's
Cannot
interesting
stop with the yawning.
So we had gotten 15 minutes in before we had to restart. And now we're almost at 15 minutes in again. When last week, I pretty much built a full character in under half an hour.
Correct. And we're at almost 15 minutes.
Correct. Yeah. Like I was using D&D Beyond, I get that. So that is a little bit easier and more streamlined. But still, that's so much work.
Yeah, and when I said build a character in AD&D, I really just meant roll stats and then just tell you about all the tables that you have to look at. I knew it was not. This is not a. It takes time, and when they say like, "Oh, session 0," I remember building a character. I think it was this one that we did when I was in my college, right? When I was in college, and we built it, And I was just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you just help me? And he's like, sure. And we spent like hours, not like, 30 minutes. It was like a while building a character. And I literally said, what do you need? Like, he goes, oh, well, we have this, we have a paladin, we have this, and we have a, I don't know, I guess he was a fighter, maybe? We had, I don't know what the other character was, but I can't remember. But I was like, okay, I'll be a thief, I guess, like, if that's what you need. Yeah, oh yeah, and you can do all this, lock picking and all that stuff. I'm like,
yeah.
You just tell me what I'm supposed to do, and I will work on it. It's pretty intense, because, like, if you go, it says consult table 34. And it gives you like non-weapon proficiencies. So if you're like, so I did rogue, so I get 3. So if you go into the actual proficiencies, they are not like what you find in 5e. Like, my character as a thief could literally, I'd go to rogue. I can do ventriloquism, tumbling, tightrope walking, yeah, jumping, juggling, musical instrument, reading lips, gaming, gem cutting, forgery, disguise, blind fighting, appraising ancient history. I feel like my character would be like...
There's some of those that I could actually see coming in handy. Like blind fighting, tightrope walking.
Yeah. Ventriloquism.
I mean, sure.
Like, if you're fist fighting someone and then you just throw your voice behind them. Hey, kid, what are you doing? And then they're like, oh my god. I'm just hypothesizing.
Why not?
So when you finally figure out what you want to do in your proficiencies, of which there are many, you can then finally equip your character. And you have to consult table 43, 44, and 46 to get that done. As you can imagine, I just wanted to play, and I never really, I tried to get into it. I tried to read it, but I get like halfway through and I was just like, it was a lot. Like, it was overwhelming a lot. But I knew the basics. So when I got to play 5e, because I wanted to learn how to play it so we could play with my local friends.
Yeah.
And one of us kind of, because we talked about it and we played variations of it, and we're like, why don't we just, we'll probably end up homebrewing it anyway. Let's just learn it. I was so relieved that that I had an app that I can deal with, because that's what I had to deal with growing up. And I was just like...
I mean, we talked a little bit about, I don't know, maybe the first episode or the second episode, how I wish I'd had it when I was a kid, because it would have been like a great outlet. But I was so... Math was always so hard for me. And as somebody who has a kid who's in 6th grade, still is hard for me with homework. Math, like, numbers just don't work in my head. This really would have like put me off from doing it, because I would have felt stupid. I would have felt like I can't do it fast enough. And I felt like everybody would have been judging me, regardless of if they were or not. Like, I could have had the best people in the world around me. I still would have felt so self-conscious about how long it took to put these like puzzle pieces together and check all the tables and make sure everything was done right. And I'm sure playing the game was similar too. Like, I would assume that you had even more math to do than you do in 5e.
Yes.
So yeah, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, the amount of math and stuff that's in it, like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
As we've kind of gone on this, like, tabletop journey that we've started on, and we've seen, like, the other creators out there and the other players out there and storytellers, like, there's so much more beyond this particular brand of tabletop.
Right.
And it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's a great one to start in that it is probably the most crunchiest math, like, heaviest. So moving into something that is a little bit lighter, like Into the Odd, for instance, where it really is not as crunchy, not as heavy, or like if you were into sci-fi, like I will not stop beating my chest about Mothership. Like, it still has those math elements, but it's not as suffocating. There are some stuff you have to juggle, but that's all about learning it, as opposed to like this.
Well, and the other thing is too about talking about different games and more recent games. If you're not like looking at something from the past or that you grew up with, and then being like, okay, well, I actually could make this a little bit better, or like somebody already has made this a little bit better. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm sure there's some purists out there, if any of them are listening, that would be pissed off about that and say, like ADD is the only way to play this because that's how they played it and whatever. But you got to like look at it as like a growth, just like you would do with anything, with storytelling, or Star Trek over the years has improved with each iteration of the idea and the series, and it's grown and it's become more I guess the same people who would say that this is the only way to play Dungeons and Dragons would probably say Star Trek's too woke now.
Yes, they would.
It always has been.
Yeah.
You're just growing. Like, that's the whole point of creating something. You create something in the moment, and then over time, other people make it better. That's kind of how stuff happens. Nothing's ever perfect when you put it out. So, when they put out this is probably like the best they had. They were working off what they thought was right. And, they played the game, and these were the modifications to it. Looking back over decades and decades, you can be like, okay, well, we did this with the best idea in hand, or maybe not, who knows, but let's make it better by fixing this and that.
Yeah, and bring more players in, or let's get a bigger audience, because we're not reaching an audience that we want. Like, it's kind of become stagnant or whatever. I think it's great to talk about this particular brand, because there's just so much, and they've built such a big fan base, especially with COVID and Critical Role really kicking off, and Dimension 20 and those kids over there. And obviously, looking at all the Kickstarters too, like Shadow Dark that I picked up, and there's so many people that just like are so into it and want to improve on it, or want to peel from it, and make their own thing. It's just, if you were listening and you're like, should I do this? Go for it. And if you don't like it, there's so many other things out there that might be your cup,
Well, and even looking at stuff like, Wizard of the Coast and Hasbro have historically had problems with racism anyway. But when you look at it and you're looking at things like, okay, well, if you're going to be a dwarf, you can't be XYZ. Or if you're going to be an elf, you have to be XYZ, whatever those particular sins were. Like, oh, if you want to dig into it, there's probably some racism there.
Yeah. Well,
Quite
and
literally.
just reading their descriptions on like how these people are, like halflings and what their body types have to be, and it's
Right.
this idealized, like, this is what it is. But you know, you look at it, some of it's like based on what Tolkien was, right? But you look at Merry and Pippin, and they weren't like Sam, you know, or they weren't like Frodo, or they were, and they weren't always married.
Specifically, they get called out as taller hobbits, like Merry and Pippin.
Yes. Yeah.
Intentionally. Yeah, no, I mean, you're absolutely right about all that stuff. And I think it's good to look at stuff and be like, we can still like this thing, but we can recognize that it's problematic on a social level and like a structural level, right? Like they dropped a ton of stuff by the time they got to 5e, and they've still tweaked stuff even in the most recent updates. And they tweak stuff with all the I forget what you call it, but the extra books, like the additional books that you can buy and everything like that.
Yeah, the supplementary.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
and the supplementary ones are pretty cool. Yeah, and the supplementary, like, there's some really cool stuff that they've done. Like, I built a character that was basically a scarecrow.
You did.
So, sort of. And she was awesome, and I loved being able to build a character like that and be able to play her, even though we didn't get very far into their story or like the body horror that I wanted to go for. But there are a lot more to it. Yeah. There is a lot more though in their books and that you can go in and they've added so many races, classes, proficiencies, backgrounds, all that stuff. So check it out if you want, and if you're like, nah, you know what, it's still too overwhelming for me, it's too much, there's always Pathfinder, from what I've been told.
Well, and there's all these indie games that we keep trying to play and look at and everything like that. There's an endless world. Like, you can definitely find something that's for you. Or, you know what? Like, just make up your own thing. Take the bones of this and make a game that you want to play.
Like I did. Doesn't
have to be perfect. Yeah. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Colin,
doesn't have to be precise.
Colin does it all the time.
Yeah, I make shit up every single day of my life. And you know what? It works out great. All the time.
That's right. The Tabaxi pet menagerie that your kid has goes into town, goes to a pet store, buys all the pets.
I mean, I stopped letting the villages and towns have pet stores because I was getting tired of keeping track of after the adoption of the wolf family in the wild, I nixed all the pet stores. But anyway, that's a story for a different
That's okay. That's when the villain comes.
The Elder Elves. You can find us all over the internet at the Elder Elves. You can find me at colincarlton.com. I'm a voice actor and a writer. You can find me on social media at Colin Carlton VO. My name is only spelled with one L, but I don't care if you spell it with two, but none of my social media handles have to. So there you go. And you're Obscure Abrasion.
Correct.
Everywhere, right?
Everywhere. Artist, writer, shenanigans,
even in your real life.
Haver.
That's what we call you.
Yeah. It's on my birth certificate, Obscure Abrasion.
All right, everybody. Tune in next week, Tuesday. And then all the